What if I told you that a single punch thrown in a dusty ring in Reno, Nevada, would shake the very foundations of America? A fight that wasn't just about fists. This was a battle for freedom, identity, and pride. It was the fight of the century. But it wasn't just about two men fighting for a title. It was about two men battling for the soul of a nation. This is the fight of the century you never heard of. Jack Johnson, the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world, defied the odds, broke the color barrier, and showed the world that black men could not only fight, but could win. But when he claimed the title in 1908, it wasn't just a victory for him, it was a slap in the face to a deeply divided, racist America. And then there was Jim Jeffries, the Great White Hope, a symbol of white America's belief in superiority. A hero for a generation who believed a black man could never truly be the best. But when they finally met in the ring, what happened wasn't just a fight. It was a clash of ideologies. And the result? It changed the world. July 4th, 1910. A date destined to be forever etched in history. This was the day that would forever alter the course of boxing, race relations, and American society. It was more than just a fight. It was the battle that would define an era. To understand why this fight became the fight of the century, we need to understand the world in which it happened. The United States in the early 20th century was a nation deeply divided by race. The scars of the Civil War were still fresh, and the country was struggling to reconcile its ideals of liberty with the harsh reality of racial segregation. Born in Galveston, Texas, in 1878, Jack Johnson grew up in a world where African Americans were second-class citizens, relegated to menial jobs, discriminated against, and systematically oppressed. But Johnson was different. He was determined to rise above the limitations society imposed on him. From an early age, he knew that the only way to achieve greatness was to prove everyone wrong. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Johnson wasn't content with simply getting by. He wanted to be the best, and he showed the world that he had the talent to back it up. Johnson's rise to prominence wasn't easy. As an African-American boxer in a white-dominated sport, he faced constant prejudice. But he fought with a confidence and swagger that made him a force to be reckoned with. He wasn't just competing for titles, he was fighting for respect. In 1908, Johnson achieved what no other black man had ever done before. He became the heavyweight champion of the world. But his victory was more than just an athletic achievement. It was a blow to a nation that wasn't ready to accept that a black man could be the best. Johnson had defeated Tommy Burns, the reigning champion, in a fight that had been years in the making. But instead of celebrating his triumph, America's white society recoiled in anger and disbelief. The champion was black. But Jack Johnson's victory wasn't just about boxing, it was about race. White America couldn't stand the thought of a black man holding the most coveted title in the sport. The backlash was immediate, and the press began calling for a new Great White Hope to take Johnson down. Someone who could restore the racial order. Someone who could prove that white superiority wasn't just a myth. Enter Jim Jeffries, the undefeated former heavyweight champion. Jeffries was a giant, both literally and symbolically. He was the embodiment of white America's dream, strong, powerful, and white. When the call went out for someone to challenge Johnson, Jeffries was the man everyone turned to. But there was one problem. Jeffries had retired from boxing. He had no desire to return to the ring. He had made his money, settled down on a farm, and moved on with life. But the pressure from fans, the media, and society was relentless. Jeffries didn't just feel the weight of his own reputation. He felt the weight of an entire race on his shoulders. The fight was scheduled for July 4th, 1910, in Reno, Nevada. It would be a spectacle like no other. People from all walks of life, from every corner of the world, would descend on the small town to witness history. This wasn't just a fight for the title. It was a fight for the soul of a nation. The air was thick with anticipation, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. When the fighters finally faced each other, the tension was electric. On one side, Jack Johnson, arrogant, confident, and unapologetically black. On the other, Jeffries, the last hope for white America. The weigh-in was more than just a routine pre-fight ritual. It was a moment of psychological warfare. Johnson stood tall, smirking, while Jeffries clenched his fists, the pressure boiling inside him. The crowd, overwhelmingly white, murmured in anticipation. This was more than just a fight. It was a reckoning. The bell rang, and the two men went to war. From the very first round, it was clear that Jack Johnson wasn't just fighting for a title, he was fighting for the right to be seen as equal. Jeffries, once the dominant force in boxing, was outclassed from the start. Johnson moved with a grace and fluidity that Jeffries couldn't match. For every punch Jeffries landed, Johnson had three answers: dodging, weaving, and counterpunching with precision. The Great White Hope wasn't just losing the fight, he was being humiliated. Jack Johnson's victory wasn't just about boxing, it was about rewriting history. And there are countless stories like this, stories that changed the world in ways you wouldn't believe. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.